Fever coach capitalizes on blessing in disguise amid Caitlin Clark injury. The Indiana Fever are rolling, even with superstar Caitlin Clark sidelined. Coach Stephanie White has made the most of what she has dubbed a blessing in disguise. The Indiana Fever are not better without Caitlin Clark. But they have gotten much better while playing without Caitlin Clark. The Fever are winners of 5 straight games, the latest being Sunday's victory over the Seattle Storm, with all the victories coming as Clark is still sidelined with a right groin injury. It's time some credit for this goes to the head coach, Stephanie White. White has managed Indiana through a turbulent season. Not only has Clark been in and out of the lineup all year, but there was also the Dewana Bonner exit and numerous other variables that could have disrupted any locker room. However, the Fever seem more together than ever, which obviously bodes incredibly well for when they get Clark back on the floor. In the meantime, said togetherness continues to result in wins, both setting the table for better playoff positioning and putting less pressure on Clark to return quickly. Stephanie White explains recent Fever surge. Indiana currently sits just a half game back of 4th place in the standings, and only a game and a half out second, with this recent streak putting real meaning into the old catchphrase, Fever Rising. In addition, on the entire season the Fever are currently 4th overall in net rating, and impressively grayed out in the same spot on the defensive end. They sit at number 4 in offense too. This is particularly noteworthy since defense was an area that desperately needed to shore up. It stands to reason that Clark's return will make the offense even more formidable, plus her size and rebounding at the guard position are other areas where her presence should only bolster the numbers. Not to mention Clark's transcendent playmaking goes beyond the box score. But right now the Fever are getting it done with balance. This is highlighted by 2 of the last 3 wins coming in games Kelsey Mitchell scored in single digits. Coach White explained some of the benefits for everyone else on the squad during the time Clark has been out after the victory over Seattle. I think it says a lot about this group. You know we've got a deep team, White stated. She then pointed out how the mix of veterans who know what it takes to weather something like an injury and young players who are coming into their own make for a good combination. I think I said it early when C. Lark was out the very first time. While we don't like it, sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise, because everybody else finds themselves, White added. And no one is afraid to make the big play, offensively or defensively. We've got a really good group that's unselfish, that want to win, that play well together and for each other, and when one person doesn't have it, somebody else does. And I think it makes us really, really difficult to scout when that happens, she concluded. White's cause has been bolstered by key additions to the team, particularly guard Ari McDonald. But her words ring true as it seems like a different member of the team has stepped up every game amid the recent winning streak. Of course, this is all building toward Clark's return to the lineup. The gravity she brings to the floor is irreplaceable, but the Fever's situation no longer feels grave when she doesn't play. That is a credit to her teammates and to Stephanie White, who has certainly capitalized on said blessing in disguise. The next step will be seeing just what the Fever can accomplish when the blessing of Clark returning to game action eventually arrives. Fever coach capitalizes on blessing in disguise amid Caitlin Clark injury. In the blink of an eye, Gainbridge Fieldhouse fell silent. Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever's transcendent rookie, lay motionless on the hardwood. The crowd held its breath, the scoreboard irrelevant, the electricity drained from the air. It wasn't just a rolled ankle or a hard foul, this looked serious. Fans, players, and coaches alike feared the worst. For head coach Christy Sides, the moment was a gut punch. Clark wasn't just a star, she was the star, the engine of their offense, the spark to their culture, the face of their franchise. Losing her even temporarily felt like losing a limb. But amid the swelling panic and grim diagnoses, Sides kept her composure. "It's a test," she told her staff that night, behind closed doors. "And we're going to pass it." Clark's MRI confirmed a sprained knee, enough to sideline her for at least a few weeks. It was a blow to ticket sales, national TV coverage, and the team's momentum. But for Sides, something quietly clicked. This might actually be the moment we grow. The curse of dependence. Clark had been sensational since the draft, dishing dimes, pulling up from the logo, packing arenas across the league. But the team had begun to depend too heavily on her brilliance. Veteran players deferred. Role players froze. When Clark was on the floor, the ball often stopped moving. When she sat, panic set in. "We'd gotten lazy," Sides admitted in a later press conference. We relied too much on one player to save us every night. In Clark's absence, Sides saw an opportunity to reshape the team, not by defaulting to damage control, but by pushing the rest of the roster into the spotlight. Training ground. Practices changed immediately. Ball movement drills. Offensive sets designed without a singular star. Guards were challenged to take ownership. Nalissa Smith was urged to become the offensive fulcrum. Kelsey Mitchell had to be more than a shooter, she had to lead. I told them, this is your team now. Prove it. The Fever dropped their first game without Clark. Ugly. Disjointed. But something was different. The next game, they won, narrowly, but with grit. Smith recorded a double-double. Mitchell racked up 8 assists. The bench, often overlooked, played its best minutes of the season. Without Clark, the Fever weren't just surviving. They were evolving. The hidden chemistry. The media was initially brutal. Can the Fever win without Clark? Clark's injury exposes Fever flaws. WNBA fans robbed of spectacle. But inside the locker room, something was growing, an identity beyond Clark. The team started talking more, laughing more, collaborating more. Roles became clearer. Expectations sharpened. Rookie backup guard Graceberger stepped up with newfound confidence. The pick-and-roll game improved. Transition defense became a point of pride. This forced us to talk to each other, said Aaliyah Boston. We couldn't rely on Caitlin's voice or vision. We had to find our own. Sides watched with pride as her team turned into something tougher, smarter. Less highlight reel. More grind it out. It wasn't pretty basketball, but it was honest basketball.